I read this a few months ago now, and I still think about it probably at least once a week. Today I want to talk to you about the 4 books that we have loved inside the Busy with Books book club and talk a little bit about them. So let's dive in. On spot number 4, we have Homeseeking by Carissa Chen. Now, I do not actually have the physical book for this, so the handy little Kindle will be our placeholder today. This book was beautiful. It was our second read in the book club, and it was just really emotional, beautiful, and it left me with a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. So this book is a historical fiction. There's a bit of romance in there. The story is about 2 people, Haiwen and Suchi, who are a young couple. They fall in love as teenagers and are each other's first big love. And the story plays in Singapore in the 1940s initially, but then throughout the book, we accompany them throughout their lives. The story talks about topics like soulmates, love with a distance in time, but also location distance. It talks about loyalty, about, sacrifice, and it gives you a really interesting insight into China's 20th century, Singapore, China's history. I found myself research into the history of Singapore, the history of China, parts of Hong Kong as well. And it was not really something that I had learned at school, so I found it really interesting to get to know this part of world history through this book. And it is, in fact, one of my favorite ways to learn about historical events through stories like this. It was a really emotional book. The characters go through a lot of lows, some highs, but I would say definitely a lot of lows. And it was a beautiful story that ended in, without giving you any spoilers, I found very satisfying and beautiful way. But you'll have to see for yourself. Book number 2, once again, I do not have the physical book for this. It's The Frozen River by Ariel Lahon. This was our very first Busy with Books book club pick. So a big pressure here to deliver right on the first go. But this book was very beautiful as well, very different to Homeseeking, but lots of things for us to talk about. So what is the story about? It is historical fiction paired with a little bit of mystery. So there's a body that is found in, like the title might suggest, the frozen river, and our main character is a midwife. She keeps a very detailed diary of all of the women that she has helped in childbirth and all the happenings in the village. Now, this story plays in 18th century Maine in the US, so it was a very different location to Homeseeking, which was Singapore and China. But it was very interesting to then follow the main character as she is asked to stand in front of a jury and talk about her diary, her experiences, so that they could find out who killed this man. The book talks a lot about what it means to be a woman in that time. We also found a lot of parallels to what it means to be a woman right now. There are themes of justice. It talks a lot about writing down your story. So what are you leaving behind once you leave this earth? And we found it a very emotional read, and it gave us a lot of material to discuss in our book club. And personally, I think that is what makes a good book for me. It needs to lead to a great conversation. There needs to be lots of things that we can talk about in the book club. Because sometimes you read a book and it's nice, like it's a good book, but there's not all that much that you can talk about, and there's no wider topics that the book club can pick up on. So this book definitely delivered on that. Number 3, this one I actually do have as a physical copy, and it is The Lion Women of Tehran. So as the name might already suggest, this is a story that takes place in Iran, mainly in the 1950s, but even leads up to the 1980s, but mainly 1979, when the big Iranian Revolution happened. This book reminded me a lot of The Kite Runner. So if you've read that, this is a similar concept. There are 2 friends who kind of live life together but lose touch of each other, come back to each other, and we get to accompany them throughout their life in Tehran, in Iran. I found this book beautifully written. It was easy to read, but still elicited a lot of emotions inside of me. It gives you a lot of insight into the politics and history of Iran, which is not something that I personally knew a lot about. As you can tell, I made a lot of notes here in the beginning to learn about the history so I could just understand the context of the book a little bit more. But I found that throughout the book, we got lots of snippets into the history without it feeling like a huge info dump. that some books are not really good at delivering. This book I found did that beautifully. There was a lot of information, you understood the story and the context without it taking too much away from the characters and their development throughout the story. So a beautiful book about friendship, female friendship. There's a bit of feminism in there. It talks a lot about women being silenced, and I think that's also why this one is called The Lion Women. It's about women's strength, it's empowering, it's telling us that we need to fight for our voices to be heard, and I just really enjoyed this book. Last but not least, once again, I do not have this book as a physical copy with me. I do actually have it. But ever since I finished it, I have just been passing it around to friends and telling them that they need to read this book, and that is The Book of Guilt by Catherine Chigi. She's a New Zealand author, so that is even better if I'm for a book club that is based in New Zealand. We absolutely adored this book, and I read this a few months ago now, and I still think about it probably at least once a week. So this book is classified as sci-fi, mystery, a little bit of historical fiction as well, but it's just unlike anything I have read before. It tells us the story of triplets, 3 boys that grow up in an orphanage. And they have 3 mothers, mother morning, mother afternoon, and mother night. And they give them medicines every single day so that they do not get sick. And they record their dreams and the things that they do wrong throughout the day. Very ominous, and the boys just kind of go along with it, but at some moment they start to wonder whether these pills that they have to take do not actually make them sick rather than keeping them well. So they become a little bit suspicious, and I don't want to spoil anything, but basically you'll see the story unfold from there. At the same time, there's also a second storyline about a little girl who is not allowed to go outside or to meet people. So again, very ominous. We do not really know what's going on here, but you do kind of get a feeling that the storylines will overlap at some point. So I'm not going to say anything else about this book, because if I dive into the topics that this book discusses, then I might give away some of the plot twists already. So just go into this one blind and just trust me, it's fantastic. I just can't stop thinking about this book, so just really please read it. Those were the 4 books that we really enjoyed in the book club. So far we've read about 8 or 9 books in the book club. I think most of them we actually quite enjoyed, but these 4 were really the top ones that we all really loved for different reasons, and that we would recommend. So if you are not part of a book club just yet, or maybe your current book club just isn't really doing it for you, then please come and join us inside the Busy with Books book club. We have discussions every single month on Zoom, and we have an exclusive Slack channel where we talk about all kinds of bookish stuff throughout the month. You also get an exclusive Italian recipe every single month that usually comes straight from my own recipe books. They are usually recipes that are simple, easy to make, and you do not need any weird specialty ingredients. They are usually dishes that I will have grown up with in Italy, that I make at my home here in New Zealand, but that you probably wouldn't necessarily find at a restaurant or even at a restaurant in Italy, because they are just dishes that we make at home, authentic Italian cuisine. So hopefully we will see you inside the Busy with Books club. If you need any more information, you will find that in the description, and we hope to see you inside. And if you read any of the books that I recommended today, please let me know. I always love to hear what you think about the books that I enjoyed. See you next time. Bye bye.